Hello everyone. So today let us talk about Confluence space migration. And this is a very common thing to do whenever two Confluence instances need to be merged together. Maybe there is an acquisition of company A by company B, or maybe within the same company, two companies are getting merged together, not really two companies, but let us say two different teams or departments. Sometimes in a very big company, there is a local company in a specific country, and the same company also exists in country B, and they have a different Jira instance, Confluence instance, and there is a need to just have one common global Confluence instance. And we will talk about Confluence, not Jira, in this video. And on my channel, I believe I have a playlist talking about consolidation, and I want to make regular videos on this because these days I know from my experience talking to people, organizations, that many companies are trying to consolidate. So when it comes to moving to cloud, this movement, I should say movement, I believe it is a movement, Pahetlashan, they're actually asking everyone, all the clients, to asking them nicely. They're not forcing everyone, but every company is now thinking about either moving to cloud if they have not moved already, or they are trying to just consolidate their existing instances. So in this video, let us just focus on Confluence, and I want to share a few things to consider. Now, the very first thing is, if you want to do Confluence migration, then it can be done natively very easily. So Confluence has this native export feature of a particular space, and you can then import it. So what you can do is you can go to your Confluence backup and restore section, and you will find one option to create a backup or an export, I should say a backup, for one or multiple spaces. So it can be done, and it is very straightforward. You can do the same export or a backup by going to the Confluence space content tools. So you have multiple ways of doing it, but if you go to the global backup and restore, you will be able to take a backup of multiple spaces. So use the native feature. It works nicely and it is great. And when you go to your target instance, you simply restore it. So this is of course the process, and it is very simple, right? If you want, I will show you probably in one of my video. Now the thing is, in this video, in this session, I just want to give you some pointers and ideas, and hopefully it will help you, because you need to keep these things in mind. So number one, it is possible. Number two, it is possible using default or native capabilities in Confluence. The other thing that I want to talk about is, if you are doing this migration, make sure there is no conflict of the space key. So if you have a Confluence space on both source and target with the same space key, then you need to handle that. So there are few ways of doing this, like renaming of key. The most simple thing that you can do is go to your source instance, create a copy of your space, and when you create a copy of your space, you can give your new copied space a name and a key. So do that, and then perform the migration. So this is of course straightforward and quick. The other thing that I want to talk about is how to ensure that your users are able to use their migrated space as it is. So you need to basically ensure that whatever apps that you were earlier using on your source instance, you have those same apps installed on your target. Now, it really depends on your decision whether you really want to go ahead with those apps, because most of the Confluence apps, at least for the users, those apps actually provide macros. And those macros can, of course, help the users for doing a lot of wonderful things. But if you don't have those apps installed, then those macros will not work. So, of course, you need to review your list of apps. And communication is, of course, very important. If you're doing any migration, communicate to your end users. Tell them what will work, what will not work, and this is your new URL. The other thing that I will talk about is the integration. If you have some integrations on your source instance, then of course you have to worry about those integrations post migration, on your target instance. So just make a list somewhere and then, decide what you want to do with those integrations on source. The other thing and very important thing to worry about is users. Now, on your source instance, you might be using a username format, which is your email address. On your target instance, your username format is totally different. And on your source instance, maybe your users are coming from some Active Directory. On your target instance, maybe they are coming from Active Directory, but it is being provisioned through some other tool like Okta, for example, right? So make sure you manage those users. Now, if the usernames are changing, then it is a problem. In that case, you have to basically go to your space XML and then rename those usernames, because when you take an export of your space, you will get a very big file, XML file. So technically you can go to your spaces and you can do some, search and replace. It is cumbersome. What I would say is if you know that the usernames will change, then do it like maybe on your source instance, or maybe set up some intermediate instance. Again, user management is a pain when it comes to renaming, right? It is also a pain, by the way, in Jira, but something to worry about, something to think about. Worst case scenario, or I should say, if you want to save time, you can just tell users, okay, after this date, log into this instance of Confluence using this new authentication or identity management provider, right? Whatever you're using, and go to your space and make sure those users have access to those space. So of course, doing it for few hundred spaces is still fine, but when you're doing it for thousands of spaces, then it's a painful thing to do. So just have a think about users, right? And what else? So we talked about apps, we talked about macros, we talked about how to do the migration, we talked about communication, we talked about the user management, integrations. So this is, to be honest, pretty much it. Of course, it also depends on how you're doing it. Like if you want to use a native method, it is great. I remember in the past I have done a space export and import using Bob Swift CLI plugin. So there used to be, I'm not really sure if people are using it, but I haven't used it in a while. So using Bob Swift CLI plugin, I think you have to install an app on your Confluence instance, and then using CLI like command line, you can actually export and also import. That used to be the case. I'm not really sure about the current situation. So this is these things that I'm talking about, this is for doing like a proper consolidation. What you can also do is export your spaces to HTML and maybe then leave it as it is and don't do any consolidation. Maybe your source your source Confluence instance can be just left as it is, maybe in a read-only format. Of course, you can't do that, I think, with data center anymore. You need to have like an active license, if I remember correctly. It used to be different because till data center, or I should say till server, you were able to just use your instance as it is, and you will just lose support if you don't have active license. But I think now you can't do that. So if you know that is the case, and if you don't really have like a very big not Jira, but data like a Confluence instance, then I think what you can also do is just dump it somewhere, maybe plain HTML, and then leave it, and your users can then access it. Maybe you can set up some Apache and ask your users, okay, go to this link. These are all the URLs, and we have like a backup or a readable backup of your old spaces, which is of course not perfect, but it may work. And you can also export your spaces to a couple of other formats, but I think you should always think about consolidation, like doing a proper consolidation. And one thing I would say that when you're doing consolidation, you have to worry about the user management, like in terms of licenses. So when you move stuff, when you consolidate, your user count will increase, right? And you have to worry about it. So yeah, these are few things that I thought I'll probably talk about on my channel. I have been talking about these things anyways, but I have been ignoring Confluence, and I promise I will talk a bit more about Confluence in my videos now. All right, that is it. That is all I wanted to talk about. And yes, a couple of other things. We are hiring if you are looking for a job. We are currently hiring for 2 positions. We are hiring for a Jira admin and a script runner consultant, basically a Jira admin slash script runner developer. The other position is for Node.js and React developer. So if you are looking for a job, and especially if you are in Delhi NCR region, do reach out to me, message me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, by the way, Ravi Sagar. Search for Ravi Sagar, and or you'll probably find there is a link in the description, right? Okay, so that is it. That is all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. Thank you very much. Bye bye.